Alright, what is up YouTube? Welcome back to another anime live action video for you guys. As today I thought it would be interesting to kind of read some hate comments. At least this time it won't be on a video from myself. But yeah, I really wanted to talk about this comment that was talking about the live action Ghost in the Shell from Hollywood that came out a while ago. It kind of stuck with me because it refreshed a lot of the thoughts that I had when the movie came out. And yeah, I never really got to talk about it because, you know, I didn't have a YouTube channel at that time. So yeah, let's talk about it now. So someone said, honestly, Ghost in the Shell and Guyver weren't bad live action versions. Ghost in the Shell was just badly received because people were being racist against Scarlett Johansson, even though if you watch the anime, the character looks white and either way is a robot, so skin doesn't matter. Then someone replied to that comment saying, so you're one of those people that think the Japanese depict their characters as white. LOL. And then someone responded to that comment saying, yeah, how dumb of him / her. What with so many of the characters having blonde and brunette hair with blue and green eyes. But if you know a little about the subject, you'd have known Major Motoko was a Japanese girl put into a Caucasian android body in the source material. That's why it was hilarious when so many idiots online acted offended that she was being played by a white actress and those in Japan couldn't understand what the big deal was. And then the guy that originally made the comment said, no, I'm one of those that think that robots can be portrayed as whatever, and if you look at many characters in anime, they could pass as white and only in a few do they say things that would identify them as Japanese. So yeah, I kind of wanted to just talk a little bit more about this comment section in particular because there are other hate comments later on, but I think I'll make a separate video about those because they talk about the Cowboy Bebop live action and, you know, that's a whole video by itself. But focusing primarily on Ghost in the Shell with these few little comments here. Yeah, like the thing is, when Ghost in the Shell came out, I remember everyone was hating on the movie and I was wondering why, because I was like, oh, Ghost in the Shell, like they're making a live action. I thought that that was pretty cool. You know, this was still around the time where I was really into anime and not quite yet into filmmaking. I believe I was like, you know, kind of in my first year of film school. So I was still, you know, learning things and everything, just getting into film and stuff. But I was obviously super into anime. I wasn't like the biggest Ghost in the Shell fan from the start, so like I was kind of interested in how they would do a live action, and I think they did a pretty decent job. I'm gonna make a review video about Ghost in the Shell eventually, but for the sake of just, you know, sticking with kind of the comments of this video, yeah, I remember everyone was hating on the Ghost in the Shell movie saying, oh, Scarlett Johansson, she's white, movie sucks, you know. And it was so weird to me because I'm like, well, I know, you know, the main character's name is like Major Motoko. I was like, oh, maybe she's Japanese or whatever, but I still didn't think that that doesn't mean Scarlett can't like play the role, you know. Like I personally was like, well, she's like a robot, right? Or she's like, basically when I went into the movie, I was not really one of those guys that was like, oh, she's got to be Japanese or this and that, because low key, like when I saw Scarlett Johansson and I saw, you know, Ghost in the Shell, I'm like, oh, that's a perfect fit, you know. I was like, oh, she looks just like it, you know what I mean? And I mean, a lot of times in movies, especially Hollywood movies, they pick someone that is going to sell the movie, right? Like people love Scarlett Johansson, she's beautiful, right? Like of course, if they pick her as the main actress to play the main character, which she looks a lot like, you know, that's gonna sell the movie, right? Like not everyone even knows what Ghost in the Shell is, so people that don't know what it is, but they know Scarlett Johansson and they think she's great, she's beautiful, she's, you know, they want to see her next movie, they're going to see this movie, right? But like if this was some random actress that nobody knows, you know what I mean? Like that's not gonna have that same star power to sell the movie, right? And for me personally, the only other anime live actions that we had gotten up at this point were that like everyone knew about were like Dragon Ball Evolution, you know, and like other live actions that no one even knows, right? And I think a lot of the reasons why those movies kind of sucked is because Hollywood just didn't care, right? They didn't care about the actors playing the role, they didn't care about the source material or anything like that, right? But with Ghost in the Shell, I remember seeing it in the theaters and thinking, wow, like this is a pretty good movie, you know, like they stayed very true to the source material. But I always thought that them choosing Scarlett Johansson meant that they cared, You know what I mean? The fact that they chose an A-list actress meant that they cared, because if they had chosen some random actress to play Major Motoko, then more than likely they wouldn't have cared as much about the movie being good. You know what I mean? The actress herself probably wouldn't have cared as much about the movie, right? Like, Scarlett Johansson is a great actress, so she is going to care about the roles that she's in. She wants to keep her good reputation, you know what I mean? Like, if she wasn't into the movie, if the movie was kind of shitty or whatever, she wouldn't just like take that, you know what I mean? Like, she would be like, hey, this movie kind of sucks, maybe this should change or whatever, right? Like, she has that reputation to keep, so she cares a lot about the movies that she's in. Versus an actress that nobody knows, she might just not care. She'll probably do whatever the director says, and if the director and team don't care, then it's like, you know, the movie might not be as good. But at the very least, with this casting choice, with Scarlett Johansson being in the movie, it tells you at the very least that the team cared about this movie. Whenever I watch the movie again, whenever I watch the behind the scenes, I can tell you just from experience and filmmaking, these people really did care about this movie. And like I said, I do think the movie is good, but you know, I'm not gonna get too much into that with this video. I just kind of wanted to point that out specifically because I feel like there's so much drama and controversy behind the whole Scarlett Johansson thing that, like, it just honestly never made sense to me, like, never. And another thing that this person mentioned was that, yeah, Japan was just like clueless about what the whole big deal was, when America was really the one that was making a big deal about it. But when you think about it, what fucking sense does that make? We Americans are complaining about a Japanese property being made into a live action by us, and we're the ones saying that we don't like it because we're whitewashing it, even though it doesn't really matter because the character herself is actually in a white Caucasian girl's body, and you know, it's a robot anyway and all that. But like, just thinking about it, right, the fact that America is the one complaining more about this than Japan, like, are you serious? You know, like, it just doesn't make sense. And to me, that always came off to me as like, oh, America doesn't know what anime is. You know what I mean? They think anime is all Asian characters, so then when they see Scarlett Johansson, they're like, oh, this is whitewashing it, so it's gonna be bad. And that to me just tells me that, yeah, you haven't seen Ghost in the Shell, you don't know the source material well enough, and you don't watch anime. If that's the conclusion you come to, you don't know what anime is. You don't watch enough anime. You're just writing this off as bad because you want to hop on the bandwagon. You want something to talk about, I guess, on your Sunday afternoon because your life is too trash and boring to do anything else. But yeah, that's what that came off to me as. When in Japan, they're like, oh, this is pretty good. Like, they're chilling. Like, they're like, why are people getting offended? Like, especially Americans, you know, like, it's, you know, that always kind of odded me out. I remember when I got the ticket actually to see Ghost in the Shell, and the guy that like gave me the ticket was like, oh, you're gonna see this movie? And I was like, yeah, like, what'd you think? And he was like, Scarlett Johansson, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. And then I actually watched the movie and I was like, oh, this was pretty good, you know? I think in comparison to the original Ghost in the Shell, like, it was pretty good, you know? But anyway, I'm not gonna dive into that. But I will say one last thing on that subject is that after seeing the movie, it made even less sense to me why people were so upset, because in the movie, spoilers I guess, they have the original character in the movie and she's an Asian woman. Like, people were saying, oh, she shouldn't be a white girl, like, she's supposed to be Asian. And it's like, they literally showed the Asian girl who was like the original Motoko, like, they show her like in flashbacks, like, they literally show that she is an Asian woman, but like, she's, you know, just trapped in Scarlett Johansson's body, and you know, Scarlett Johansson being a robot and everything. Like, they literally show that, they literally explain that. And like, the fact that people still were like, oh, Scarlett Johansson ruined the movie because she's not Asian, like, it just didn't make sense to me at all. Because I'm like, if they never showed that, I guess I could, you know, at least understand where people were coming from. Like, oh, maybe they should have made her Asian because like originally she's an Asian girl, whatever, even though she was in a white body, but like, that's actually what happened in source material. But like, whatever, right? Like, if they were like, oh, we just want like Asian representation because it's a Japanese property, at least I could understand that much. Still wouldn't be on that side at all, and still would think it's really stupid that Americans are complaining about it, but I would at least understand that. But the thing is, they showed the Asian girl. They showed an Asian girl and like who Major Motoko was actually supposed to be, like in flashbacks and everything. They showed that. They showed Motoko's mother. Like, people were just complaining for no reason. Like, that's the thing. Like, oh my god, like, it's just so stupid. Because yeah, they literally had that representation in the movie. So I never understood why that was such a controversial thing. Alright, so really quickly, just want to interject here before the comment section tries to, you know, come at me or whatever. So I know I said, oh, well, the American people are complaining about Hollywood whitewashing, you know, something from Japan. I just want to say, I know that that is a valid, like, thing, right? Like, it is okay for us to complain about Hollywood whitewashing things, right? Like, that's a valid argument. That is a valid point to have. Like, it's not, there's nothing wrong with us wanting something that's more authentic, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with complaining about Death Note being whitewashed or like the Akira movie being whitewashed. Like, there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but I think that the argument of it being whitewashed felt really out of place and felt really stupid, in particular with this case, because it wasn't really being whitewashed simply because of the fact that Scarlett Johansson is playing the main character, especially if you know the source material and you've actually seen the movie. Also, like how one of the commenters said earlier in the video, not all anime characters are Asian. And that's true, not every anime character is Asian. I think one of the most popular and prime examples is One Piece. One Piece, the entire cast of One Piece is not Asian people, right? Like, and that's why the One Piece live action is not taking a full Japanese cast, which is actually great, right? But if you look at something like, I don't know, Bleach, and the Bleach live action that came out a while ago, take a character like Yoruichi in Bleach. Yoruichi very clearly has, you know, dark skin. She's probably African American descent, who knows, right? But she's not fully Asian, right? However, if they ever did introduce Yoruichi into the Bleach live action and it was a Japanese project, more than likely she would probably just be played by an Asian woman. And then how would we feel about that, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things to talk about with the whole diversity thing, and I think honestly it deserves a separate video. But I just wanted to kind of quickly speak on the fact that I understand the other concerns, right? Like, I remember hearing a lot of the complaints when Scarlett Johansson got cast, like, oh, it should have been an Asian American actor or actress like John Cho. And everyone was bringing up John Cho like he should be playing these characters in anime live action. Well, lo and behold, he did end up playing a character in an anime live action. And guess what? Everyone still hated it. So, you know, it's kind of crazy revisiting, you know, what people were saying years ago and then coming back now to people still hating it. You know, it is what it is. But anyway, I'm just saying, I know that there are other concerns regarding the Scarlett Johansson drama and everything. I just wanted to kind of quickly point out those while getting back to the main point, and, you know, tell you guys that I am probably going to make separate videos discussing those other concerns, because I do think that they are more meant for separate videos and separate topics and discussions. But anyway, but yeah, the other things in here, I do think that it's worth mentioning that, like, yeah, you know, she's a robot, right? It shouldn't have been all that, like, crazy controversial, I feel like, for her to play this cyborg character, right? Especially with, I just feel like Scarlett Johansson looks so much like Major Motoko, right? Like, if you were just to be like, who's gonna play Major Motoko? I feel like Scarlett Johansson's like the #1 pick, you know what I mean? And, you know, when you think about Hollywood and live action movies, right? Like, let's take the Sonic live action movie, for example, right? Like, Sonic movie 3 is, you know, coming out in the future, right? Everyone's saying, oh, Keanu Reeves should play Shadow the Hedgehog, right? Like when these things get Hollywood live actions, like, it's not like they have to be entirely accurate, you know what I'm saying? Like, they can have someone from Hollywood play the character, because again, how I mentioned earlier is like that star power, you know what I mean? Like, they need someone that's gonna sell the movie for people that don't know what the heck Ghost in the Shell is. And Scarlett Johansson not only looks so much like Motoko, but she would definitely sell the movie. And on top of that, like, it's a robot. Like, again, it's a robot. Like, it really shouldn't matter as much, because it's not like this character has to be, you know, strictly Japanese or French or anything. Like, it's a fucking robot, for crying out loud. Like, it should be able to be played by realistically anyone. If they made Major Motoko black, you know what I mean, it should work. Why? Because it's a fucking robot skin, bro. Like, goddamn, it shouldn't even matter. But the fact is, you know, I think they did a really good job casting Scarlett. You know, some people I think said like, oh, they should have had more Asian representation, right? But like I said before, they literally had an Asian girl to have the flashbacks and everything. So it's not like they didn't have that representation in mind or like wanting to show it. But again, you gotta realize, like, when these Hollywood live action, like when you're getting a live action adaptation from Hollywood, if they choose an actor or actress from Hollywood, that shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? And like, I just feel like, I don't know, especially for a role like this where it's a robot and it really shouldn't matter like the role or whatever of who's playing it. Like, I don't know, I feel like people really blew that out of proportion, and like the adaptation itself wasn't meant for people in Japan, like it was meant for the Americans. So like, I feel like we should have been like, oh hey, Scarlett Johansson, you know, and like should have been more welcoming to the idea of an actress that we all know and love playing a character from an anime, right? Like, I mean, with all the anime live action projects coming out nowadays, right, this, like for example, the Saint Seiya one, not every actor and actress on the Saint Seiya live action project is Japanese, you know, like they're all not Japanese. Some of them are, you know, from Hollywood, right? And it's like, I just feel like at the time that this came out, Ghost in the Shell got so much hate, so much undeserved hate, and you know, it's unfortunate because it really didn't deserve it. It just, I feel like all of it was just useless, and all of it was just towards Scarlett Johansson, which just didn't make sense. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. If people are going to complain this much about how Scarlett Johansson, who is literally portraying a robot that does not have a race, I don't know how they're gonna feel about the future of anime live actions from America. But like I said, I think Scarlett brought attention to an interesting cause, and I think that anime live action as a whole, you know, maybe people will look back on Ghost in the Shell and rewatch it and think, oh hey, this is actually a pretty good adaptation, especially from the original, and now I'm okay with Scarlett Johansson being the main actress, and this isn't so bad after all, you know? That's what I hope anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on the Scarlett Johansson drama. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, that helps me out a ton. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see y'all in the next video.